Welcome to the second volume of our three-part series titled Those Incredible Alcos. In this volume, we'll chronicle the early production years of the Model 251 prime mover, which first appeared in August 1951. Our timeline follows the progression of locomotive models introduced over the next 10.5 years by both Alco and Montreal Locomotive Works that were equipped with the new power plant. The volume concludes with the RS-36, the final model released before the introduction of Alco's Century line of locomotives. During this period, the two companies built over 1,400 diesels that were equipped with the Model 251 prime mover, the replacement for both the 539 and the 244. Our goal when we began this series was to document at least one operating example of every diesel locomotive model Alco produced for the North American market. Of course, certain models no longer exist, and others are non-operating museum pieces. We therefore had to adjust our goal to include only models that remain in service. We think that you'll be surprised and impressed with what can still be found. Sit back and enjoy the show now as we travel throughout the continent searching for early 251 powered models in Those Incredible Alcos Volume 2. We've nicknamed these diesels Notched Nose Wonders. The notched nose refers to the beveled corners where the car body ends meet the roof. This design was introduced with the 244 powered model RSD7 and became a distinguishing symbol that lasted until the end of Alco production. These units are definitely wonders. Many are still found in service on short lines and industrial operations. The diesels create a high level of curiosity, utter amazement, and great admiration from Alcophiles throughout the world who flock to sites where these lovable diesels can still be found. As we view this collage of notched nose wonders, we'd like to review why Alco was forced to develop the 251 engine. It's no secret that the company was suffering from a lack of sales due to poor customer satisfaction with the Model 244. Providing warranty work on the engine was costing Alco plenty of money. Realizing its shortcomings, they vowed that the 251 would not be rushed to market. Instead of bringing out a 12 or 16-cylinder model, the company decided to start small by introducing a 6-cylinder 800 horsepower engine. The prime mover was placed in a switcher test bed, which would later be called the Model S-5. The first sale of the 251 engine, however, was a 10-unit order that went to General Electric. The engines provided power for an order of 78-ton export locomotives being built for Cuba. Soon thereafter, 7 S-5 switchers were sold on the domestic market before the engine was upgraded to 900 horsepower. This change created the Model S-6 switcher, specification number DL430. In an unusual move, Alco reused this number years later with the Century Model C430. The S-6 was first released in May 1955. A total of 126 were built, the last one in December 1960. Additionally, there were 2 cow-calf sets produced for Oliver Iron Mining. The cows were Model SB8s and the calves SSB9s. This tired-looking S-6 works for Ohio River Transfer at Canova, West Virginia. The locomotive may appear beat up, but the little switcher still has plenty of muscle to move loaded coal hoppers at the barge dump. S5 and S6 models are nearly identical to earlier Alco switchers. The major spotting difference is the location of the radiator. It was moved from the side to the front of the unit. Another obvious difference is the location of the exhaust stack. It sits much further forward than on older models. After pulling a cut of loads out of the storage yard, the cars are shoved around the balloon track to the dumper. The diesel was purchased new from Alco and numbered the 56 for the year it was delivered. There are still many S-6s in operation around the country. When the big railroads dump their fleets, industrial users eagerly scoop them up. At Nakusa Paper in Port Edwards, Wisconsin, a former Southern Pacific unit pulls a string of cars at the plant. Once the last car clears the points, the brakeman throws the switch and the cut of cars is shoved onto another track. Chemicals, wood chip cars, and outbound finished products keep the in-plant railroad busy. Having cleared another switch, the train will now pull forward and head for another plant located a couple of miles away. The first road switcher built with a 12-cylinder 251V engine introduced a new Alco model, the RS-11. 3 demonstrators were built in February 1956 and toured the country. This was 4.5 years after Alco first started testing the 251. Specification number assigned to this diesel was DL701. The 12-cylinder engine produced 1,800 horsepower at 1,000 RPM. An interesting fact to ponder is this: when the RS-11 demonstrators were built, Alco was still manufacturing RS-3s. The first order for the RS-11 came from the Duluth, Winnipeg, and Pacific for 15 diesels. The 3600 seen here is the class unit of that order and today works for the shortline group Genesee Valley Transportation. A total of 356 RS-11s were built by Alco, and an additional 75 were built at Montreal Locomotive Works. The Canadian units were export models purchased by the National of Mexico. Many can still be found in operation south of the border. The largest purchaser was Norfolk and Western, who bought a total of 99 RS-11s. The crew has one more car to pick up before heading to the Conrail interchange, and the short train is backed along an industrial spur. A few minutes later, the engine reappears as it pulls the cut of cars toward the Conrail interchange. We ride along with engineer Matt Ronsky with a short run to the Conrail tracks. As we pull alongside the main line, a swift-footed intermodal train rolls past. The control stand on this unit is set up for long hood forward operation. The locomotives could be ordered either way, and many late model RS-11s even came with a low short hood. Car body filters varied on different orders, as did the type of fuel tank used. This unit is equipped with the Montreal Locomotive Works version of the Type B truck that is 6 inches shorter than its U.S.-made counterpart. After delivering outbound cars, the unit will now couple onto a cut of cars to bring back from the Conrail interchange. Once the air is connected, the crew will return from the interchange to do more switching. Another user of the RS-11 is Shortline Kankakee, Beaverville, and Southern, located in Illinois and Indiana. Two of their former Norfolk and Western Alcos arrive at the Norfolk Southern interchange near Danville, Illinois. The conductor tells us that they will have to wait about an hour for the NS to arrive at the interchange with the train of empty grain hoppers. The KB and S has a total of 6 RS-11s, but are not all operating. They also have one C420 and a rebuilt RS-3 powered with a 251. After picking up a train of empty grain hoppers from Norfolk Southern, the 2 RS-11s return north toward the railroad's operations center at Iroquois Junction. The two units easily pull the hoppers across the flat Illinois farmland and come past a grain elevator. This is corn and bean country, and numerous elevators line the tracks. The train has slowed and will stop here for the crew to set out a cut of empty hoppers. We'll leave them to their work and move on to the next development in Alco lineage, the 6-axle RSD-12. These two former Lake Superior and Ishpeming units now work for the West Tennessee Railroad. Both diesels originally belonged to the Chesapeake and Ohio. Two months after the release of the first RS-11, Alco brought out a 6-axle version based on the same design and called it the RSD-12, specification number DL702. Although the locomotives look much longer than their 4-axle brothers, they are actually just 13.5 inches longer. They are powered with the same 12-cylinder 251 engine as the RS-11 and are also rated at 1,800 horsepower. A total of 171 units were built between April 1956 and April 1963. All were built in the United States by Alco, except for 10 export units built by Montreal Locomotive Works for Brazil. The West Tennessee units are from the very first order of RSD-12s that were built for the C&O in 1956. The crew is busy switching an industrial spur in Humboldt, Tennessee. They're spotting an empty reefer at a chicken processing plant. Wondering if the company was shipping dressed chickens in reefers, which would be very unusual, we inquired about the cargo. The conductor explained that the reefers are used for transporting chicken feet to the West Coast. There they are packaged and shipped overseas. We are told that chicken feet are considered a delicacy in many parts of the Orient. The two RSD-12s will now reverse direction and couple onto the loaded reefer. The car will then be shoved inside a warehouse where a couple of empty boxcars will be picked up and added to the train. The crew will spot the cars on the CSX interchange track before departing. Once that's done, they head into town to pick up the rest of their train. The two units are eased back to couple onto the train. In a few minutes, the men are ready to pull west, eager to return to their base at Trenton, Tennessee. The train rattles across the CSX Nashville to Memphis main line and then heads out of town. The government-owned railroads in Mexico were the largest purchaser of the RSD-12 with 92 diesels. At Empalme, Sonora, we view one of Pacifico's units being used to switch the yard. The 502 is Pacifico's lowest numbered RSD-12, the 501 being their only RS-11. The unit may look like a weary warrior, but under that grimy exterior, the 12-cylinder 251 is probably in fine condition. The railroad shop located nearby takes pride in keeping the Alcos running. Two months after releasing the RSD-12, Alco placed a 16-cylinder version of the 251 prime mover in the same car body used for the RSD-7. This diesel was called the RSD-15. The specification number was changed from DL600A to DL600B. At 2,400 horsepower, the RSD-15 matched the most powerful single-engined locomotive on the market, the Fairbanks Morse Trainmaster. Electromotive's SD-24 was still a couple of years away. A total of 75 RSD-15s were built, all for the U.S. market. The Pennsylvania Railroad purchased the first order, but Santa Fe was the largest buyer at 50 units. Because of the length of the short hood, Alco-philes have taken to affectionately calling these units gators. The overall length of the units was also long, 8.5 feet longer than an RSD-12. We captured this former Santa Fe unit when it was working for the Wabash and Ohio, a short line that's no longer in business. When this program was produced, the unit still existed, but an oddball locomotive like this has little value except to a museum. The train is on its way to a river terminal a few miles west of Henderson, Kentucky. This locomotive was the very last RSD-15 built, completed on June 2, 1960. Before coming to the short line, the unit worked for Squaw Creek Coal in southern Indiana, along with another RSD-15. Before that, it was Santa Fe number 843. After arriving at the river port and terminal, the two locomotives will be used to switch cars. The primary reason the railroad existed was to haul grain to this river port, where it was transferred to barges. This and a sister unit were the last two RSD-15s to remain in service. Their days numbered. By the time you view this program, they will probably be out of service. There are at least 2 more units that have been preserved by railroad museums. We'll leave the crew to their switching and continue our Alco chronology. While Schenectady had converted domestic locomotive production to the Model 251 for some time now, Montreal Locomotive Works was still cranking out units powered with both of the earlier prime movers. That changed in 1957 when MLW brought out their first 251 powered diesel. The RS-18 is nearly identical to the earlier RS-10 that was powered with the Model 244 prime mover. Both designs closely follow the contours of the RS-11, with the exception of not having notched ends on the hoods. It's been stated that MLW at first even referred to these units as RS-11Ms. The specification number assigned to the RS-18 is DL718. Like the RS-11, it has a rating of 1,800 horsepower. Production lasted from March 1957 through June 1968, 7 years longer than the RS-11. A total of 351 were built, 225 for Canadian National and 72 for Canadian Pacific. The other 54 units were built for various industrial users, short lines, and the Pacific Great Eastern, which later became BC Rail. The 1830 is viewed as it switches CP Rail's Binghamton, New York yard. On another day, we watch as Sister Unit 1810 works the east end of the yard in Binghamton. The 1801 is a former Roberval and Saguenay RS-18 that now works for Genesee Valley Transportation. In 1995, it was on their Depew, Lancaster, and Western operation in upstate New York. Listen as the unit is cranked over. Like many diesels of this era, the long hood is set up as the front. The crew has a couple of cars to pick up at a warehouse, but nothing to deliver today, so they head east as a light engine move. The control stand appears much different from the one in the RS-11 we rode in earlier. It's composed of a single cabinet housing the throttle, reverser, and gauges, with the brake valves mounted on a side extension. It's a much cleaner looking design and consolidates the controls for ease of operation. The conductor has unlocked the warehouse door and climbs back aboard the unit. The crew will roll east past a switch to access the warehouse track. They'll then come back to make the pickup. One car waits outside and another is inside the building. The diesel is cautiously backed into the building to retrieve the other empty car. Once the two cars are coupled together, the RS-18 pulls them from the warehouse. This completes the only work the crew has today, and they will now head back to the office with their two empty cars in tow. A former Canadian National RS-18 was found working for the Cape Breton and Central Nova Scotia Railway in 1995. The unit is seen working the industrial tracks around Port Hawkesbury. After making a switch move, the train makes a reverse move to retrieve the brakeman. At Halifax, Nova Scotia, we watch as a 6-axle version of the RS-18 and an S-13 switcher work the yard. This is a standard RS-18 that Canadian National placed on 6-axle A1A trucks from scrapped RSC-13 or RSC-24 models. These units were derated to 1,400 horsepower. The locomotives were intended for use on lightweight branch line rail. CN called the converted diesels RSC-14s, but this was not an official model number for Montreal Locomotive Works. The class number stenciled on the locomotive cab reads MR14B. We prefer the RSC-14 model, since that is what they would have been called if the units were built at MLW. Another user of the RS-18 can be found on the Wabash Lakes Railway in Labrador. This and Sister Road Arnault are the only places where one can still find 4-unit sets of these diesels MU'd together and working in heavy haul road service. In May 1957, Montreal Locomotive Works built a single demonstrator unit based on RSD-15. It was called an RSD-17. The unit toured both CP and CN, but failed to generate any orders. It was sold to CP in 1959 and worked there until being retired in 1995. The odd locomotive was affectionately nicknamed the Empress of Agincourt. Although we tried, luck was not with us, and we failed to get shots of the Empress before it was retired. In March 1958, Alco released a new switcher model called the T-6. The T stood for transfer, indicating that the engine was being marketed as both a switcher and a crosstown terminal engine. These little diesels also had transition control, which permitted them to operate at higher speeds. The specification number was DL440. The 251B produced 1,000 horsepower. Just 57 of these units were built, but there is a long gap in their production. After constructing 48 T6s between March 1958 and March 1960, production ceased since no more units were on order. 57 months passed before any new orders were received. In December 1964, 2 units were built for a Mexican steel mill, and 5 more were built over the next few years. The last 2 T6s were built for the Newburgh and South Shore in Cleveland, Ohio. These 2 diesels have the honor of being the final 2 locomotives completed by Alco before the company ceased production. They were delivered in January 1969 and brought the total number of T6s produced to 57. Norfolk and Western was the largest buyer of the T6 with a total of 40 units. Arkansas and Missouri number 14 is one of those former N&W diesels. The A&M had a total of 5 T6s but has sold a couple of them. The 14 and RS-32 number 42 are busy working A&M track in Van Buren, Arkansas, located across the river from Fort Smith. The 2 diesels shove a cut of cars east along the riverfront to the Union Pacific interchange. They'll also switch empties for loads at a local aggregate dealer. These odd-looking cars are former Southern Pacific organs that were used to carry copper concentrate. The A&M now uses the cars to haul sand. It's well after sunset now, and we'll get one more shot of the 2 diesels throttling up before we call it a day. The very last diesel to depart the Alco plant at Schenectady, New York, is now owned by Cargill Grain and works at their facility in Dana, Indiana. The diesel is in good hands, and the operators are well aware of the unit's historic significance. This engine's twin, the number 1016, is also in good hands and works for the Middletown and Hummelstown near Hershey, Pennsylvania. The 1017 is used frequently, but when not working, the unit is kept inside a building that was specifically erected to keep the diesel out of the elements. After a string of grain hoppers has been loaded, the little diesel gets to show off as it shoves the heavy cut east to a storage track. In October 1958, Montreal Locomotive Works began delivery of 46 passenger units for Canadian National that were powered with the 12-cylinder 251 prime mover. The total included 34 FPA-4s and 12 FPB-4s. All produced 1,800 horsepower. Specification numbers for these units were DL218A and DL218B. Delivery of the order was completed in May 1959. When VIA took over the passenger operations of Canadian railroads, these units were transferred to their fleet of diesels. The blue and yellow paint scheme looked mighty nice on these units when it was fresh. These scenes were captured in Canada in 1986. When VIA retired the FPA-4s, many of these units found their way to tourist operations in the United States. B&O 800, owned by Gary Balloon, was specially painted in this attractive scheme while operating for the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad at Cumberland, Maryland. The unit has since been moved to a dinner train operation in New Freedom, Pennsylvania. Gary was kind enough to take the old diesel out for a spin to show us that the unit was still capable of producing that special Alco magic. Looks great, don't you think? We thank Gary and business partner Ray Kammer for taking the time to show us the FPA-4 in operation. Other railroads operating these units on tourist trains include the Potomac Eagle, Cuyahoga Valley, Napa Valley Wine Train, Grand Canyon, and the New York and Lake Erie. Units are also located at various railroad museums. While Alco began 251 production with switcher models S5 and S6 in 1954 and 55, Montreal Locomotive Works didn't build a switcher with the new engine until January 1959. That's when they released the first model S13, specification number DL411. These switchers were powered with a 6-cylinder version of the 251 that produced 1,000 horsepower. A total of 56 S13s were built. All but 7 were for Canadian National. Most were built in 1959, but industrial users purchased the last 4 units. One each was assembled in 62 and 63. 3 years later, another was built for an industry, and the final S13 was built in July of 1967. Canadian National 8700 was found working along the waterfront at Dartmouth, Nova Scotia in 1995. The crew is finishing their workday after switching local industries, and the diesel shoves a cut of cars into the yard. Returning now, the crew brings the switcher out to get on the engine facility lead. The diesel will then be backed toward the facility, stopping to let the brakeman close switches behind the engine. 40 similar units were built primarily for Canadian Pacific beginning in August 1959. All of the specifications matched with the exception of the roof height. The RS-23 was an inch taller as a result of the units riding on MLW road trucks. CP purchased 34 of these diesels, with 3 others going to the Sydney and Lewisburg and 3 to an industry, Texas Gulf Sulphur. The specification number was changed to DL811. All 40 units were built within a 13-month period. As CP began divesting itself of branch lines in eastern Canada, these units were quickly sold off. The Windsor and Hansport purchased an isolated line in Nova Scotia and bought several of the RS-23s for power. 4 of the units are MU'd together for use on heavy trains between gypsum mines and a processing plant. The 4 units are viewed as they climb a grade leading to a gypsum mine. The operation was new at the time we visited, and none of the diesels had been painted into the W and H scheme. That has now changed. After running around the empty cars, the 4 RS-23s will proceed to another mine to pick up loaded cars. The brakeman sets a derail to prevent runaway cars from entering the main track before departing the mine. We'll break off here and move to the next development in the Alco timeline, the pug-nosed RS-27. Although only 27 of these locomotives were built, they remain a favorite with most Alco-philes. Just 2 of them now exist, and both are former Green Bay and Western units that were originally purchased by Chicago Northwestern. Both work for the same short line in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul on the Minnesota Commercial. The 27 units were built between December 1959 and October 1962. Alco used specification number DL640 on these powerful little engines. Under the hood is a 16-cylinder version of the 251 that puts out 2,400 horsepower. The diesel is the 4-axle version of the long-snouted RSD-15. The Pennsylvania Railroad was the largest purchaser and had 15 of the brutes. On a snowy December day, we caught up with the 318 as it struggled up a short, steep grade on an overpass in Minneapolis. Listen as the diesel spins its wheels on the ice-covered rail. The engineer was able to make it across the bad stretch of track by applying lots of sand and working the throttle. After arriving at the end of the branch, the crew has another problem to tackle. Trucks have compacted the fresh snow into a solid sheet of ice, making the tracks nearly invisible and extremely slippery. worst is over now. Riding in the cab, we watch as the engineer handles brake and throttle to switch the two tank cars. Another operator using this model is located nearby. The Ontario Central's lone locomotive is a former nickel plate, low-nosed RS-36. The line is operated about once a week, and the crew is on their way to interchange cars with Conrail at East Shortsville. The two-car train crosses New York State Highway 96 near Manchester. Like RS-32s, the low-nosed RS-36s came with a wide picture window type windshield. The engineer slows for a derail located just ahead. The conductor signals to stop and then steps off to throw the switch. The train has entered the siding to drop off the two empty cars and will now come back onto the main. At the end of the short line's track, the crew will wait for Conrail to set out a single car. The Conrail engines are uncoupled from the car and are pulled ahead to clear the switch. They'll then be backed onto the four empty cars that Ontario Midland dropped off several days earlier. Once the Conrail units have cleared the switch, the RS-36 is moved ahead to pick up the inbound load. With the swap of cars now complete, both crews head back from whence they came. On the crew's return trip to their office at Victor, we catch one more run-by before calling it a day. This concludes our look at early 251 powered models, which we have fondly called notched nose wonders. Alco had already started producing its new modern line of diesels to replace these models in 1963. To wrap up this series, those sleek century behemoths will be detailed in Volume 3. Join us then as we look at Alco's final stand and the units built by Montreal Locomotive Works and Bombardier, released after Alco's demise. Here are previews of those incredible Alcos Volume 3, followed by a look at Volume 1, the first show of the trilogy.